Hi, Read 585. This is part 2 of your week 12 lectures, and we are focused on the content of what makes for quality professional development. So, looking at our session objectives for this unit on professional development, we first were using data to plan our professional development, looking at our formative and summative data for our school site in order to develop our SWOT analysis and our plan for PD. Then we also talked last time about the 6 principles of effective professional development. I would review those as you plan your PD. And then now we are really focused on formulating a structure for developing and delivering professional development. So let's talk about this first article that regardless of what grade level you teach, you will get something out even though the articles are labeled elementary and secondary. They can be applied to any and all grade levels. So the first article is Professional Development for Literacy, Who's in Charge? And it talks about how with No Child Left Behind, all teachers need to be highly qualified. And a lot of states require you to complete continuing education to show that you are maintaining your status of being highly qualified. California has different requirements than other states I've worked in. You have to go through your BITSA program or your induction program initially, but from there you aren't really required to do a lot of ongoing professional development, whereas in my current state, you do. You have to get, I think, 330 clock hours within a 4-year period. So, in addition, PD is required and must be evaluated, and the article actually, the authors make the point that schools who take charge of their professional development don't hire it out. They are managing their PD rather than being managed by the PD. So if you as a school take control and make the plan, even if you hire a consultant, you'll have more success than this random consulting happening. Either way, if you do the PD or you hire someone to do the PD, you want to make sure that it's connected to your needs as a school, your goals for school improvement, and will ultimately help your data improve in the way that you want it to. So 3 points at which these schools evaluate their PD: initially during the planning phase, formatively as the PD unfolds, and then summatively to examine teacher and student growth. And this is actually something I've been thinking a lot about as I plan PD for my current school site, is we don't do a lot of evaluation of PD. We might give a PD and then afterwards do a survey, but beyond that, we don't look at the longevity of the impact of that PD, and I want to definitely do that more, which is why it's so important to have one consistent focus for the whole year and provide many opportunities throughout that year for rich learning experiences for your staff. So who is required to provide PD? Well, schools that are Reading First funded, so that's part of the AB 466 regulation that schools who qualified for those Reading First funds and use them provide PD. If you did not qualify for Reading First funds, but you didn't make AYP, you also should be providing PD. And then I know in my state, each school is required to provide a minimum of 5 days of PD a year. So there are some different regulations out there. It's important to know what yours is where you work. Who can provide the PD? The school can deliver their own PD, or you can hire someone from outside. And there is also a state-approved list of providers who are allowed for this PD. So, a tale of two schools. In this article, they give you School A and School B. So, School A didn't make AYP and is now on the state watch list. The school is using their Title I and their Title II federal funds for PD. The district is providing the school with a consultant to work with the school. In addition, the district is requiring all schools that didn't make AYP to attend special district-wide PD. The principal is getting feedback from teachers on their suggestions for how to best use this consultant. Great idea to get that input. The teachers are saying a variety of things. They want the consultant to come in and model lessons to improve reading, kind of vague. They want reading materials, also a little vague. And then some want to get parents involved. So those are their three different goals or focus points for the year, and they kind of do a collection of things focused on those three areas. And then we find out later in the article whether or not they made AYP. And then School B also didn't make AYP. And the principal was very transparent in bringing the information, first of all, the data to the team, but they actually brought the members of the school's literacy team together and asked them to do a lot of the analysis of the data and get a better understanding of what the data was and why it might be that way. And it's very important that you have people connected to the school site looking at the data because they have a better understanding of some of the nuances that are unique to your context. The team unpacked the results, looking for areas of strength as well as weakness. Hopefully, that process sounds familiar to you and now feels comfortable to you, having gone through the SWOT analysis process in assignment number 3. The principal informed staff that the school didn't make AYP and that all funds would be used for PD in reading. So again, the principal was very transparent with the staff. The district provided the consultant, but the literacy team formulated a plan to present to the teachers based on the data. The plan included flexibility, but like I said, was based on data. The team wanted to make sure that the plan attended to other PD. So all PD happening within the building, as well as any district provided PD, that the plan informed other PD, it was aligned to other PD. They wanted to keep student learning at the center of PD. So a lot of times it's great to say we want to do this parent involvement thing, which should indirectly help student performance, but if you only have 10 parents attend that PD, that's not going to be the most effective way to use your limited resources, time, energy, etc. So you want to make sure that student learning is really going to be maximized by the PD that you are planning. Want to make sure that PD was not seat time, but included active learning. So we don't want participants just sitting there, but actually engaging with the content, practicing it, so that they are going to be more likely to apply it. School B also had their reading specialist attend all PD so that she could coordinate it. And it mentioned that she asked to attend PD, but as a principal, I would require the reading specialist to attend the PD. The team met with a consultant beforehand to make sure that the work of the consultant aligned with their school goals and their vision for forward movement. Specifications were created so that the consultant would work with teacher teams on interventions for particular students. So you see in this school there was more of a focus given to the consultant other than just model reading for us. It is teach us how to provide interventions for these students that the data is showing are not learning. Assessments were selected so that all teachers would use before and ongoing measures to monitor progress. And this was something I noticed while grading your part twos of the assignment 3 was a lot of you had, this data point or this assessment for grade 1, but then in grade 4 you're using a completely different measure, and then grade 5 gave you a completely different data point. So how do you have continuity across your school site in assessment practices? If this grade is giving, this assessment, is it really as rigorous as Common Core says it should be? If it's showing that all of their students are on track, yet your results for proficient and advanced for that grade level on the CST or an aligning? Is that really the most reliable and valid measure? So definitely thinking about school-wide practices for assessment because that's where you're getting this data. I know one of you had a plan for improving school-wide assessment practices so that the data you're using to inform professional development and instruction and all of those things is better data than what you currently have. So I'm not going to ruin it for you, but one of the schools makes AYP and one of the schools does not. So you'll have to read the article and find out which one. I do wish that the article would have provided a little bit more background on the big differences between the two schools and how those played out. For instance, School B implemented more of the principles of professional development we read about in a previous article. School B also formulated a very concrete plan based on data, whereas School A just said, all right, what do we want to do? And then, whoever was there with a voice said what they thought they should do, and that's kind of what they ended up doing, versus School B was a lot more intentional. They brought together a team of teachers who analyzed the data, who made a plan, who coordinated the PD. School B also asked for input, but this was after first presenting the teachers with the data. So in your professional development presentation, you are going to provide the purpose and the background and the research and the data so that your audience can see, oh wow, this is the weakness of our school. We need to get working on this. And then they can generate ideas and solutions for how to work on that very targeted goal. School B also used a consultant, but they met with them ahead of time. I always get really nervous when we decide to bring in someone from the outside because you have no idea what their hidden agenda is going to be, what product they're going to try and push and sell, and how their work is really going to support your work. They don't have the knowledge of the context that you do. So I prefer to do our own in-house PD, but a lot of times we don't have the capacity to do that, so we bring in other people or people from our service center, but it always makes me just a little nervous. And then School B included assessments to monitor progress. I wanted to go back and show you this process for school improvement that we use at my school, and it makes a lot of sense to me, and we've had a lot of success with it, and I think it mirrors the process that you should use as you develop your professional development. So step one, it is a, cyclical process here, but step one is analyzing student achievement data. So what student learning needs does the data indicate are present? So you have done a lot of data analysis already in this program and already in this course, both at the individual level, at the class level, and now at the school level. So that is a very important first step when you are developing any professional development. Then from there, you need to define your goals. So we are seeing this need, and as a result, this is our goal. And remember that your goal should be based on pedagogy, not just increasing test scores. But at the same time, you need to have a SMART goal, which I'll talk about in a minute. So part of that goal is that it should be measurable so that you can assess progress toward reaching that goal. The third step is to identify practices and develop your action plan. So you look at the data, you make your goal, and then here's where you come up with your plan. This is the exact process you are following for your presentation. What instructional practices will be implemented or improved to meet this need? Once you've determined the practices you're going to do, is it going to be peer observation, video observation with reflection questions, one-on-one coaching, team meetings, what's it going to be? Then you need to do a quality study of practices. So in this part here, though, you need to think about the professional learning that's going to take place. Are you going to do a book study? Are you going to, learn as a team about this and apply that to your units? What are you going to implement there? Now, once you've started implementing these practices, you will need to formatively monitor the practices to make sure that students are learning and there's been an impact on teacher practice. So how are you going to monitor teacher practice and student learning? That should actually be part of your plan. Within your plan, you're going to identify what best practices you're going to implement and then how you're going to monitor those. And then lastly, evaluate the student learning results and your progress toward your goal. So this has been very helpful to our grade level teams who meet twice a week during prep periods and then once a month for an extended period of time to work on their PLC cycle on goals that they have all selected as teams. I actually have a great action plan format that they use to follow this process and complete during their team meetings if anyone's interested. So I alluded to the fact that you need to have a SMART goal. So after you look at your data, developing a SMART goal. So let's say I just gave reading level assessments to all of the second graders in our school. True story, I did do that. And when I did that, I realized that the phrasing of how they're reading is very choppy and it's very much 1 to 2 words at a time, not longer phrases. So I'm going to need to create a SMART goal for that need. So a SMART goal is specific. So what is the specific area that you are creating a goal around? I could just say, fluency. I want them to read fluently. Well, what does fluency actually mean? What is the specific parts of fluency? Am I looking at accuracy? Am I looking at rate? Am I looking at phrasing or prosody? All of those things we talked about. Your goal should also be measurable. This over here, this goal, does not tell me how I'm going to measure whether or not students are reading fluently. What is the measure going to be? Am I going to do words per minute? Am I going to measure it on Rosinski's multidimensional fluency scale? How am I going to measure that this is happening? Next, for the A is attainable. So if I am teaching pre-K or 3-year-olds, reading fluently is probably not an attainable goal for them. So is the goal I have in mind actually feasible? R is relevant. Is this a relevant goal? And this is actually goes right in line with our discussion of looking at the data. Does the data support that we need this goal? Maybe we actually need a comprehension goal and not a fluency goal. And then lastly, time bound. So when do we want students to achieve this? By the end of the year, within 3 years, by September or August or October, or who knows? So this is the first goal I had, students will read fluently, which is not smart in any way. So then I took it and corrected it and said 90% of our grade 3 students will score a 3 or higher on Rosinski's multidimensional fluency scale when reading a grade level text by March of 2014. So it's specific in saying the percentage of students, what grade of students, specifically what their score will be, what the measure is going to be, the time, is it relevant? Yes, because I found that they aren't reading fluently, all of those things. So hopefully this process is helpful to you as you make your plan and start to think about your PD presentation. All right, let's take a look at the second article, Investigating Content Area Teachers' Understanding of Content Literacy. So they actually studied a group of teachers from a mixture of schools, a combination of schools, a cadre, if you will, to take a look at year-long professional development with secondary content area teachers. The purpose of the professional development was to increase their use of a literacy strategy known as question-answer relationships by Raphael. They prepared classroom materials, lesson plans, which incorporated their description of the strategy in open-ended questions, instruction, and written think-alouds. So the professional development for this QAR with the content area teachers was framed around the idea that it must be active and that teachers need multiple exposures to and experiences with the techniques for learning to occur. So this wasn't just a one-time professional development where they were sitting and getting, but they were very actively participating. People were modeling, they were breaking into groups to discuss, and ultimately they were applying their knowledge by integrating it into their lesson plans. So the PD included a demonstration of the research-based practice, a lot of reading of professional literature on not only the QAR, but also on cognition and metacognition as well. The teachers worked in small groups, and then visual models of the metacognitive implementation of the strategy were also given. So the data sources used to evaluate the PD, they looked at the lesson plans of the participants and evaluated those. There were also questions posed at the end of each PD session to gauge the teacher's understanding of QAR. And then how the data was analyzed, the researchers looked for themes amongst the lesson plans and then the responses to the questions. And then they sorted the responses into 3 types of knowledge: conditional, declarative, and procedural. So procedural knowledge being they can explain the process and the procedure for the QAR strategy. The conditional being that they can explain the conditions under which to apply the strategy, and then declarative is strictly, the strategy in name, just kind of declaring what it is and what it does. So they sorted the responses into those 3 themes, and what they found was that the teacher's understanding of QAR grew in a predictable manner as a result of the ongoing professional development. Teachers demonstrated deeper understanding of QAR as their lesson plans progressed through the Think Alouds on their lesson plans. And then the 1-week area was demonstrating conditional understanding, so why they chose to use QAR in a specific instance. So that's all I have for you this week. Hopefully you're feeling like you are gaining knowledge in the area of formulating structures for effective professional development based on data, based on perceived need in your school. To launch you, I must warn you that this is intended to be funny, but it can also be insensitive if you recently had a death in your family, which I hope you do not. But I saw this and it says, "If I die, I hope it's during a staff meeting, because the transition to death would be so subtle." And this is what we want to reverse. We don't want to have meetings that look like this, where participants are sitting and getting. We want them to be up and active and involved, interacting with each other, interacting with the content, so that they're more likely to apply it to their practice and become more proficient with it. Just like we do a gradual release with the kids, we want to be doing a gradual release in our professional development practices as well, which is what I showed you in my cooperative learning PD. I did the I do, we do, you do format. So that being said, I hope you have a great week. Please let me know if you need anything. Hang in there, as we don't have very many weeks left. All right, have a great week.